One. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's webinar from Annika Digital. It's myself and Stanley, and I'm with Gurpreet today. She's doing the housekeeping and helping with the chat. And I am going to be doing a mix of slides, and I'm also going to be doing a demo as well. So I'll just start with a couple of slides, get us going, and then we'll go live into the Annika GA4 account or Google Analytics 4 account. So first of all, a little bit about myself. So I'm the founder and CEO. I quite scarily have been in digital marketing for 22 years. And Annika had its 17th birthday back in February, which seems ages ago now. So I spend most of my time doing consultancy and training. My specialist subjects really are paid media, search, analytics. I really am getting into AI and actually planning to do quite a lot of teaching in AI over the next year as well. I've got a couple of books that you can share, and I mainly interact on LinkedIn. So if you want to find me on LinkedIn, because I've been on LinkedIn for so long, I'm under the handle of Anne Stanley. And then if any of you need to email me, I'm just annika.co.uk. So a little bit about Annika then. So 17 years of data-driven digital marketing for e-commerce and established brands. We've got 5 main services around strategy, building awareness using things like social media, search marketing, which includes, of course, both SEO and paid search, shopping marketing, which is a lot of the e-commerce stuff that we do, but it also includes things like marketplaces, Performance Max, Advantage Plus, which is some of the paid media stuff that we do, and then all the training that we do as well. And quite a lot of the people that attend the webinar, there's a lot of weekly regulars. There's also quite a lot of our students or learners that are on our digital our skills boot camps in digital marketing. And we've currently got about 100 live that started in March and a couple of hundred that started in January. So quite a lot of people attend this are actually from the students that we work with in our Annika Academy. So what I'm going to cover today, this menu looks horrendous, but it looks like we're going to cover a lot of stuff, but actually a lot of this is actually parts of GA4. So I'm going to dive in a minute and go around the main dashboard. And I'm going to be looking at these sections. So there's a section on reports. There's the library, which is contained within the reports. There's the exploration section, which is sometimes called explore. Then you've got the advertising section. Then you've got admin and settings. Then I'm going to talk about a little bit about Looker Studio visualization. So Looker Studio is another Google tool which you can use. I think we do need to do a whole new talk on that because it's an area that's improved a lot. And it's been a while since we've actually done a webinar. A little bit on archiving GA3 data. That's a typo there. And a little bit on cookie consent policy as well. So let's just sort of have a quick look around and then I'll dive back into the main reports. So first of all, I just want to explain how the menu works because it's a little bit confusing. So the slides that I've got in this deck really complement the live demo. But I think before I go into the live demo, just a couple of easy things to show you will make it easier when I'm pointing things out. So first of all, this is what it looks like when you go to the Annika GA4. So you see I'm in GA4 there. And I am in what's called the home screen. You can see the little house. Now, this presentation today isn't about setting it up or about any of the theory behind it. It's just purely using the reports. And if any of you are interested in the longer workshop on this, we will be running a 3-hour workshop which covers some of the theory behind it as well. So we'll look out for that as well. So the reason it's a little bit confusing is, as you see here, what you can do is when you click over, this expands. And this is actually the icons of, this is the areas that we're going to cover, which is reports, explore, advertising and admin. But I'm going to go back because I actually want to quickly show you around this before we go into the live report. So first of all, the nice thing about the home page is it's the only page where you can choose the metrics. All the other reports, although you can completely customize the other reports and you can choose which reports you have in your menu, which we'll come on to. This is the easiest page to go and see what you want to see. Now, in our case, what I've got is I've got the last 12 months. And what you'll also notice, there's a dotted line for the previous 12 months. So when we go live in a minute, I'm going to have 30 days worth of data, which is usually the default. Now, so that means that here you can change the time period of this particular dashboard. And also you can change the metrics. So I'm currently on conversions, but I could have gone on to users, and also I can also go on to things like visits and stuff like that. So you can click on what you like. What you can't do, which you used to be able to do, is you can't change the time period. So when you're looking at something like 12 months, it tends to be weekly. But if you were only looking at 30 days, it would be daily. And you haven't got the ability to manually change that, which is quite annoying because you used to be able to do that if you wanted to. You'll also notice that this dashboard acts as a menu in that you can go and view the report snapshot and go and actually have a look in more detail. You've also got users in the last 30 minutes, and this then acts as a link through to real time, which I'm going to show you as well. And it's also got some of the more recent ones that you've accessed. And in my case, I was actually playing around in the admin section. So you can see a lot of the stuff that are here isn't actual reports, but they're parts of the admin section, which again, I'm going to show you in a little bit more detail. This does scroll down, so this isn't the whole thing. I'm just showing you the top level menu. But that's a really good way of sort of getting an idea of what that looks like. Now, if I then go to each of these, you can see that what we're going to cover is we're going to go into the reports menu in a lot of detail. We're then going to go into explore, and then we're going to go into advertising. Now, hidden underneath this very simple menu is quite a complicated deep dive. So each of these have got quite complex menus underneath them. And the reports menu, the reports section, is actually completely customizable by you. And then finally, you've got the admin section there, which I'm also going to introduce you to as well. So before I go into the live reports, I just want to show you the hierarchy of the reports menu so that you understand that. And then that will mean that when we go in live, it will make more sense. But I won't show you any more reports until we've gone to the live version. So this is what the reports menu looks like. And you can see that at this point, everything is pretty closed up. So you can effectively see the top level, such as business objectives, life cycle, search console, user, and the second level, but everything underneath that is closed. And where there's these little arrows, that means there's lots more in there. So first of all, you've got the snapshot and real time, which I will show you. And then you've got the business objectives menu. Then you've got the life cycle menu. Then you've got the search console and users. And I've sort of combined those. Now, when you go in, you won't necessarily see the same reports menu. These might not all be, and quite often the black one, and the reason I've left it like that, that's not activated at all. So you won't be able to see search console and you won't be able to see users, or you might see users and you might not see search console. So your default will vary and it won't be exactly the same as this. But in order for me to show you sort of how it works, I've shown you ours because we've got a reasonable number of reports here and we have customized it. But in the more simple version, you wouldn't have all of these straight out of the box. So if I then went across and looked just at the green area, which is the business objectives. Oh, and then you've got the library at the bottom, which we will cover in a bit more detail, because the library is sort of like the great grand controller of all of the stuff above. And it's also a really useful area because it's where you can create really nice, easy reports, which aren't difficult to create. So if you then go to the this in a little bit more detail, what I've done is I've taken that up business objectives and I've expanded everything. So you can see generate leads relates to there, drive online sales relates to there. And so these are all the reports and under there. And what you need to be aware of is that there's two types of reports. There's the overview reports, which are like the dashboards, and then there's the individual details reports, and you'll see that pretty quickly. So that's the green area. Then if I go into life cycle, again, acquisition, engagement, and also there is actually conversions and retention, but I hadn't got mine showing on this version, but I've got the full version showing you here. And you can see that there's a whole load of reports here, but you'll also notice that some of them, such as, let me see if I can see one, user acquisition, I can actually get to it from here and here. It's the same report, but it's just located in two different places. Also, sometimes they're named differently as well. So traffic acquisition and session acquisition could be the same report, but you are able to rename them so that those two may actually be exactly the same report as well. And then you might find something like Google Ads might also be down in advertising, which is down here in the advertising section. So just be aware that you can have a menu. It's a bit like a website, really. You can have the same information. So, for example, if you look on the Annika site, if you go to the social menu, there might be a menu, there might be an option of paid social. But if you go to the paid media section, you might find that the paid social section's in there as well. So it's just more ways to enter the same page. Then finally here, I've brought up the rest. So, and that's sort of, so those are that's the green section, which is the business objectives. That's just the bottom part of it. Then you've got the life cycle, which is here. And then you've got search console and users and tech. And I've just expanded that. So that's black bit is equivalent to there. So what you're seeing is that when we start, if you go back all the way back to where I was just a minute ago, that's where you start off with this very, very simple menu of reports, explore, advertising, and admin. But by the time you've gone through this lot, you can see there's absolutely loads of submenus which you have to get your head around. And the reason why everybody gets so lost is they, A, don't understand this hierarchy, and it's completely unobvious when you start. But also, a lot of the reports are hidden within each of the sections. Now, the main thing is that you can design this reports menu yourself and put it in a logical order, and you can rename things as well. So that's where the library comes in. So I'm just going to ask Gurpreet to put a mic on while I flick into our analytics reports. Is there any questions at this point, Gurpreet?
There's a couple of good ones. A couple of people are asking how to access this and how would you go about it?
Okay, and so I can show you that. Up. So the best way of accessing it is analytics at google.com. I think if I get rid of all that stuff, that will still get it to me there. Yeah, so that's the default. So if I just type analytics.google.com, that will get me to analytics. And what will happen is that depending on what you've got access to, you will come to the same screen that I was just on. So I was on exactly the same screen. Now, if you are an agency or a freelancer, or you've got multiple websites or multiple businesses, if you drop down here, you might find that you've got lots and lots of different websites. So I will access probably one of the other websites from one of our clients just to show you what some of the other reports look like, because we haven't got any e-commerce on our Annika site. Also, this is the two levels. So this is the accounts level, so annika.co.uk, and then I've got the properties. So you can see I've got my two GA4 accounts. I've got a test one, which we use when we're playing around in training, but I've also got my original GA3 or Analytics Universal. So if I was to click into Universal and look at the data there, you'll see that the data stopped around, I think, October time. So also telling me that I've only got 86 days to archive my data. But if I was to look in here and change the time, then I would be able to see that the previous data from before. But you also notice that it's actually changed the menu now. It's upgraded it to the new version. So you're not even looking at the old dashboard anymore, which is really, really annoying. But we won't worry about GA3 today, apart from archiving, and we're going to focus on GA4. So I'm just going to make my screen a little bit bigger so you can see it. Hopefully that helps. Is that clear enough, or do I need to go up a little bit with regards to the size? Would it help?
Is it okay if you zoom in just slightly?
Yeah. Is that better?
Yeah, I think that's better. Yeah. A couple of questions have come through. Somebody says, I don't have any business objectives on my menu. I'm hoping to learn how to create them.
Yep, we will. That's in the library. They are not been activated. So what you do is you publish them. So there will be a default load of menus there that you probably just not even activated yet. So I will explain that in the library section.
A couple more questions. Is GA4 a fast and simple tool at a glance for info?
It will be after I've done this session, but if you just went in today without any previous training, you wouldn't have a clue where to look for anything. And that's why there's sort of a lot of people have got quite burnt by it. If you've never used GA3, you'll actually find it'll be a lot easier to understand, because the problem with having used the previous version, so I was expecting to see the previous version when I just logged in there, and it's sort of automatically updated my old account. But the people that previously used the other one, they would have sort of got used to it. And so when they come over to GA4, it's a little bit more confusing. If this screen isn't big enough, there are two arrows top right that you might be able to just expand so you can see, or you can, I mean, in my case, it's, you can also do something like Control F11 or something like that to give you a bigger screen as well, so you can see more what I'm showing you. Other questions, Gurpreet?
Yep, a couple more. Is it true from e-commerce reports that it will not show any sales made from European or American orders?
No, that's not true at all. So it definitely will show it, but assuming that you've got any. So if you've set up your e-commerce tracking properly, you should be able to go into geographical reports and be able to see the revenue that's come from each of the different countries. So yeah, that's not right. There are some settings around currency which probably you might need to look at. So if your sales are coming in multiple currencies, you might need to look at whether they've been converted into the local pounds. But that would be a little bit more advanced. I wouldn't be covering that today.
Brilliant. A couple other questions. How do you replicate top conversion paths reports found in the old analytics?
There are some conversion path reports that you can do in Explore. Whether they are an exact replica or not, I'm not sure. We are getting more and more reports into the GA4 all the time. But my default is if I can't find it, I'll go over into Looker Studio and try and reproduce it there, because you've got a lot more functionality. But some of the sort of graphical reports, like the flows, which I will show you what we mean by that in a minute, that's where you might want to use the exploration hub, because they're sort of designed on those more graphical funnels and waterfall type visual reports utilizing the data, which you don't get so much of in Looker Studio.
Brilliant.
Is that it?
Just having a quick look through. Why do we use GA4 and not GA3?
GA3's dead. So GA3 died, was killed off last July, also called Universal Analytics, and was replaced by GA4. Where if you are a learner, we do cover a bit of the history and why we went over to GA4, but it's more about the fact they needed to build a more privacy and AI orientated platform from scratch. GA3, I was just about to show you, you can still retrieve old data, but that data will be closed off at the end of June. And I have got a slide on how to extract that data.
Brilliant. And the last couple of questions is GA4 being updated again in June?
No, it's the same, but it's been updated all the time. but GA3 the data will go. It won't, there's no archive unless you archive it yourself. So particularly e-commerce clients that want to compare with pre-COVID and historical data. We were getting our clients to sign up to GA4 2 years ago so that they would have the historical data, so that when GA3 data was eventually archived, they have given us longer time. Originally, they were only giving us 6 months, but they've allowed 12 months for you to pull that data down.
Bro, and just a couple of questions. What are the property details / property names?
That's effectively each individual website. We call it data streams. Again, I'm not covering that much. I'm not covering too much on that today. As I said, there's a 3-hour workshop that many of you will get to see. And also, if you go back and look at some of Ed's previous webinars, he did a big one in June, more on the setup, which I've got a link to in a bit. That explains the hierarchy a little bit more on the properties, etc. But I'm more interested in how you use the reports today rather than the setup, because that's where most people struggle.
Brilliant. And the last question is, what about the campaign sessions that are not shown in the GA4 report?
Okay, so there's various reasons why certain things don't get shown. It could be because there's cookie blockers. It could be that Google doesn't understand where traffic comes to. So when you look at things like the source of the traffic, often that's dumped into direct, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. But the situation really hasn't changed that much from GA3. The data collection method using a browser-based or user-side based piece of code on the website, so that when you go and look and that data is collected, that hasn't really changed very much. So if you're blocking JavaScript or you're blocking cookies, then yeah, or if you're using cookie consent mode, which I will come on to, then those sessions won't get through. So things are measured slightly differently, but again, I don't want to go into the theory today. I want to go into the practical. So I think I better dive in, otherwise we won't have enough time to go through everything that I need to show you. Cool, good questions though. So let's just dive into the actual dashboard then. So as I explained earlier on, you've got this pop-out menu with the main 4 things of home, reports, explore, advertising, and then admin. We're in the home menu, and what I like about this is that you can choose various different metrics. So you've got a choice of everything. And then if you want to click on it, then the report will change. So first visits. So is it actually changing? So I click on, yeah, it is changing. Conversions, you can see the conversion is just much lower. I could change that to sessions. So you can just do a search. Now, one of the things that you need to be aware of is a lot of the metrics are quite different. So we have metrics that relate to users and that relate to sessions. So that's why when you go into the report section, you'll see that there's session reports and user reports. And in the same way, there's session metrics and there's user metrics, which I'll show you in a second. So this is great because you can play around with which metrics you show. So you can't have more than one at a time, which is a bit annoying. And also you can change the time period. But it's sort of preset. So you don't have like the custom period that you usually have. This is interesting because if I just could do sessions, you'll notice that there's engaged sessions and all sessions. So if you look at sessions, you see I've got these massive spikes every month. Now, I know that this is direct traffic, which is coming from a software or a bot, and we're trying to find a way of filtering it out, because effectively that's just stuff coming to the site and going away again. It all happens on one day a month. It's usually in the first week. So it's obviously a piece of software. It's coming from Dublin, so it could be Google, it could be Facebook, but that's all I can find out about it. Whereas engaged sessions is a new metric, and that shows a much more realistic sort of impression of what's going on. So this is so if you remember, a user is a person, but more accurately a device arriving. So you can be a user on your mobile phone, but you can also be a user on your laptop. Every time you come to the site is a visit or a session. And of course, you can come back multiple times. Generally, a session lasts 30 minutes if you are inactive. So you could be on the computer playing around, you're in that session, you get distracted by a phone call, you come back 45 minutes later, that would be regarded as a new session, but you would still be the same user. And the first time you arrive on the site is the first session, is the first user. So when you come back multiple times, then each of those are classed as sessions. So I'll give you an example to explain this. So if Gurpreet arrived on the Annika website from a Facebook post and visited 5 pages, the first user sessions would be 5, and we'd be able to see that the source of that was Facebook or whatever source it was. If she then came back a week later from during that first visit, she signed up for an email, and a week later she came in from an email and she actually went to 10 different pages. That time the source would be email and the number of sessions would be 10. But if I went into a session report rather than a user report, what I would see is I would see all 15. So the user reports are the first time, and then the session reports are every time, including the first time. So that's the difference between a user report and a session report, because the user report is really understanding what the first time and how they got to the site originally, so it's sort of user acquisition rather than traffic or sessions. So traffic is another word for sessions as well. So we interchange visits, sessions, and traffic quite. We use those terms pretty interchangeably. So if I want to then go, so this is really useful because it gives us a really good idea of what's going on. You can click from one to another. And this is probably the easiest place to see stuff that you might have seen previously when you were looking in, if you were looking in GA4. But what you can't do is have more than one at a time, but you do get the before, last sessions versus this in this case, engaged sessions versus what it was a year, in this case, a year ago. And if I did this for the last 30 days, then I'd be comparing it with the previous. So the first week in the month, we've got a lot of interaction, but these weeks we're down on the previous month. So this just sort of gives you an idea of the trends. So I want to go into the report section next, which is where most of the meat is. And if you remember, I said that we've got quite a complex. So we've got business objectives, life cycle, search console, users. I just want to give you a couple of the most important reports, first of all, to get you familiar with those. And then I can move them across. So the first one I want to show you is traffic acquisition. So I'm going to go to acquisition, and I'm going to look at session acquisition, which is pretty much the same as traffic acquisition. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it to the left. Now, what you'll notice now is this is what I call a detailed report. And you've got a table underneath, and you've got a graph, and you've got the date choices up here. You've also got lots of icons relating to things like sharing the report and changing different things over here. You've also got some comparisons and some filters, which I will come on to later. So the first thing I wanted to do was just change the date. So you can do this using this. And if you've used any Google products, this is pretty similar. So you choose the first date, and then you can choose the 5th. And so I can basically see what's happening. And one of the first things I wanted to mention to you is you don't get any data for 24 hours. So whereas we can go, and I can show you the live report in a minute. You can go to the live report and see what's happening in the last 30 minutes. GA3, you could change the date to include today. You don't get any data today, which is a little bit irritating. So the first thing you notice is that you've got these big spikes, which is my direct traffic, which is coming in once a month. And I know that that's what's coming in. So if I really want to show you more useful, I need to go to a shorter date range. So I'm just going to go from March the 16th. And the reason for doing this was so I could just see when the date was. So if I go from there to there, then you'll see what it would normally look like without these spikes. So what you've got now is the session primary channel group, default channel group over time. So one of the things that you need to be aware of is this is basically showing you one of the metrics that's in the table. And it's actually the sessions. So it's this one here. But the official name for that particular metric or that data is now really complicated because it's being very, very specific. So this is user by session primary channel group. And the primary channel groups are Google, organic search, direct referral, unassigned, which means Google doesn't know what it is, paid search, organic social, email, and display. So these are the dimensions. And then these are the metrics. So the columns are the metrics, and the metric will either be a number, a percentage, a duration if it's time, etc. Could be an amount of money. So these are the important metrics. So this is the stuff that we want to understand. And what we are able to do on this graph is we can just do a filter. So we can, for example, select a dimension. So we could just, for example, select, let me just choose channel. And then if we choose a dimension, I could just say, for example, contains, and then I can choose, if I say exactly, then it actually brings them up, which is much more useful. Then I can choose organic search. So if I then apply that, I wouldn't see all of those graphs. I would just see, well, that's a bit annoying. It's not quite done what I expected it to do. It's just, it's given me I think it's because I've not chose the same one. So if I chose, I need to choose session. So I didn't choose the right one. So this is what I mean about it gets a little bit confusing because there's more than one. So I need that one instead. And then if I choose exactly matches, hopefully this time it should, if I've done it right, should get rid of the others. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So because I've chosen the same group, the same metric, I've now put a filter. So I'm just looking at organic SEO there. And you can see now that I've only got organic search in there. So that's what filters does. And I am going to get rid of that. So what I don't like about this, which I prefer in the homepage, is I can't see all of the sessions or all the users in this case. So I can't see what the total looks like. So I can only see them by each of the sources. But the thing I have got is I have got all this data here. And this is really useful because it means I can start introducing what some of the metrics are. So my metric is, first metric is users. And then I've got the number of sessions that they used. And then I've got the engaged sessions. So engaged sessions I need to explain. So engaged sessions is effectively, that's people that have done something on the page. So they've either scrolled down or they've clicked on something or they've watched a video or they've done something on the page, rather than them just landing on the page and thinking that this is terrible and bouncing off again. So bounce rate was a metric that we often refer to. This is the time per session and then the number of engaged sessions per user. So you can see that most of these are, this unassigned, we don't know what that is. But most of them are only one per one page per session, which is a bit high. we wouldn't want that to do. And then events is something I also need to explain to you, and I will do that next. Events also relate to conversions as well. So I'm going to explain that to you as well. So first of all, events then. So an event is something that happens on the page. So the whole way that GA4 works is that it is things like a scroll or a click or a download or a video view. So you can see that if I do my drop down here, sorry, there should be, yeah, these are all the different events I've already chosen and already set up. So some of these are default, some of these come as a package. So if I wanted to, for example, choose form submission, then that would just show me the number of forms. And then what you'll notice is that some of these events have been marked as conversions. So not all of those events. So form submissions is also a conversion. So if I choose that as a conversion, my events and my conversions match. I haven't got any revenue in this website because I'm not tracking e-commerce. But if I was tracking e-commerce, I'd have a revenue here as well. So this is really important. And if you use GA3, you would remember goals. And goals are the equivalent of conversions. Now, interestingly, I just need to warn you that it is going to change to key events. And Google's announced last week or this week that events and key events. But what happens is you set these up in the admin section of the over down here, which I'll quickly open. So I'm not going to have time to go into the admin section, which is one of the reasons why I've given you a link to the video. But you can see in here, these are the different sections. But if you go in, you've got events and conversions. So if I go into events, I've got all my events, and then I've got the ability to mark as a conversion. So that's how we set that up. Okay, so I'm going to go back to reports. Before I go into any of the other reports, I just want to show you real time. So real time is the live report, which is based on a map. So there's not very many people on the Anika website at this time of the morning. But if you guys all went onto the Anika website now, you'd all start popping up. So we'll just see how many people do that. And we'll see where you're based. So currently I've got somebody in Norwich who is there. And this is really useful, but it's much better when you look at a big site. So if I'm just going to quickly go and randomly choose. Let me just do this one in real time. You can see that they've got some international people, but because they're a e-commerce site, if I scroll in, they've got a lot more people on their site at the moment, and you can sort of see where they're located, and also you can see quite a lot of information about them. So you can see the users by audiences. You've got the page that they're going on. You've got events that are happening, and if there was any conversions like a sale, that would appear. If I choose another one, I choose just choose Charles Bentley. So if you've got another website a little bit more busy, probably got some stuff overseas, but we won't worry about that. Where they're coming in from, so Google, a lot of paid Google coming in there. They've some of the actions, etc., etc. So this allows you to sort of see more stuff. And also, if you went down to monetization, which is the e-commerce purchases, there's a load of e-commerce specific reports, which I'm not going to go into too much detail today, because most of you aren't doing e-commerce, where you can see what product they bought, how many items were viewed, whether they were added into the cart, whether they were viewed, and the amount of revenue. So lots and lots of interesting reports that are specific. And this is the sort of funnel report that I think one of the audience was asking about, what level of abandonment are, where they, and you can change this device, you can change this category. So you could change it to, I don't know, you could change it to country, for example. And then that would show you the sales in UK, etc. So I just want to go back to Anika Digital again, because I don't really like sharing clients' reports too much, whereas I don't mind showing ours. And of course, we don't have any e-commerce, so that's not relevant to us. So I'm going to go back over to the acquisition report. Actually, this time I'm going to choose something else. So I'm going to choose engagement, and I'm going to choose pages and screens. So this is another really important report that you guys are likely to want to look at. I'm just going to maximize that over here. So this is showing me individual pages. Again, I've got rid of my spike from direct, which is nearly all homepage anyway. And you can see that the resource and webinar page is really popular. Meet the team, careers, training, qualifications. Now, interestingly, Meet the Team isn't a page that people land on. It's very much a page that people go when they get to the site, mainly because they're trying to either suss us out as to know who we've got working for us, or they're trying to poach my staff or our staff rather, because I don't know them. But anyway, you can see here, you can see resources, you can see the path, and then you can see the metrics again, following a very similar pattern. But you can also change this. So you could also call it page title and screen name. So then you've got the title of the page. So this allows you to change it. And then also you can, you've got things like content group, which isn't set at the moment because it's not standard. But let's go back to, I don't know whether I can put URL back in there. I think it's called something else. So I'll leave that as it is at the moment. Oh, path, sorry. Yeah, so that's the page path. Now, also what you can do is you can do a secondary dimension. So secondary dimension is really important because it allows you then to slice and dice the data. So I'm going to choose an easy one first. I'm going to choose a device. So let me see what comes up when I choose device. So I'm going to choose device category because that's nice and easy. So you've got the home page there, desktop, resource webinars desktop, that's mobile. So that's the same home page, but the desktop and the mobile version. Then you've got Meet the Team, mainly desktop, resources, mobile, etc. But that doesn't have to be that. That could be, you could go by channel, which is our default channels. So I'm going to go by session default channel, see if that one's any use. So you can see organic search. So most of the people coming to the homepage come from organic search and direct, whereas resources is a lot of them are coming in direct, etc. And then paid search, we've got a little bit of brand going on at the moment, advertising, that's coming to that page there. So this allows you, I could also change that to source medium, which is really, really useful for understanding exactly where the traffic's coming from. So that's another metric, another dimension I definitely recommend that you look at. Okay, how are we doing for time? So I want to revert back to the slides and we'll answer questions at the end because otherwise I'm not going to get through everything. But I just want to show you the library before we do anything else. So let me just open. So you see what I mean about the menu being confusing, because if you don't know that you can close and open that, it really, you don't know where to find anything. So I want to just open the library because I want to show you where it is. And what I wanted to show you is that business objectives here match business objectives here. Life cycle matches life cycle, but there are a load more. So you can even create your own. And then when you go down, these are all the reports that you've got within. So one of the things that you might find is if I don't know where something is, so if I want to know interests as a report, I would, okay, so where do I find that? So is it there? No. So one of the things that you can do is see if you sometimes have to look around to find the reports that you need. So if I look at users, for example, that's where I'm going to find stuff about interests. But as I go down, one of the things I wanted to show you is that it's actually not very easy to find. So this is the overview page again. And what you've got is we've created some of these. So users by gender, users by interest. So I can actually use this as almost like a menu. But if I go through to this report, it's actually called demographic interests. And I have to change it here. So one of the issues is that when you go in to start with, you often find this might be marked to region. So if I go to demographic detail, that would be a good example. I've got it down at the moment as country. Actually, if I want to find out where my interests are, I have to click into here. So these reports are sometimes hidden. So if you go down into the library, you might find that somebody's already created a report like this already. So if I go and do interests in here, I can see, no, there's not sorry if I spell it right. Yeah, there's not really an interest report, but I could create one. And what I would do is I would copy an existing report and then edit it. Or I could just go and create a new details report over here, where it might be, let's see if I can find a sessions report. So these are all the different types of reports. So demographic details, that would be a good one. And then when I'm in here, what I would do is I would choose the dimension of interest. So that would be the one that I would go for. Okay. Excellent. I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to so currently it's country, but I wouldn't want that. I want to get rid of those. I'd want to choose one of the others. Okay, so let me quickly come out. I'm not going to answer questions until the end, because if I do, I won't get through everything I need to show you. So I'm going to revert back to the slides now, because I want to explain. I want to show you again what I was showing you on the live demo. So this is the hierarchy of the menus, and the reason why most people can't find what they want is because they've either not added them into here, or they don't know where to look. So the first thing you need to understand is the ability to click onto these individual sections. And as somebody said, I haven't got life cycle, or I haven't got business objectives. How do I add it? So this is I've gone right up to the report snapshot. So this is right at the top. So it's almost like the home page for the report section. And this is really useful because it allows you to, again, you can flick on these, but also you can use this as a menu. So that's really useful. This is another one. So if you look here, this is one, I think this is ours. You can see we've got lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff going on here. Whereas this one is a little bit simpler. And again, I'm in the report snapshot, but this time I've got revenue. So I'm showing you what it looks like if it was an e-commerce client, and I've hidden the client there. And you'll get a lot of the e-commerce stuff under monetization. So if you are an e-commerce, you can create a whole load of stuff. What you can actually do is you could almost create a clone of this, because you can copy them, and call it e-commerce, and then focus on the stuff you want. And in a way, that's what they've done here. They drive online sales. So they've basically renamed these in the way that they wanted to reflect the data that's in them. This is the live, which I just showed you. So this is showing you users around the country. Then I think this is Charles Bentley, because you've got lots of barbecues and garden furniture. This is the real-time review report, and this is useful to see that everything's tracking okay, and to make sure that you're getting data in. This is an acquisition overview report. So we're in, as I said, there's overview reports, and what I would recommend is you rename them, because when you just set them up, they're just called overview. So you need to definitely, this is an acquisition overview. And this is acquisition of users is really the first visit. So we're talking about users rather than sessions here. So this is really what they did first. How did they come to your site? So you can see we've got by session default channel group here. We've got by ads campaigns. We've got new users by channel. And there's something here I want to point out, cross network rather. That's due to the fact that this particular account uses a lot of Google ads, and there's a particular type of Google ad called Performance Max, which can be shown across display and Google search, video, etc. So that tends to get bucketed into cross network. Similarly with direct traffic, we often find you get a lot of social. You sometimes got email in there. So if you do a lot of paid social, if you've not annotated it properly, it might come in as direct. This is just some of the examples of some of the reports I was showing you. So this is e-commerce purchases, and you've got the actual item, you've got them added to the cart. Again, really useful reports if you're into e-commerce. And then this is demographic. So this is showing you, and you can change that to country down to city. But this is also where you find a lot of the other demographic things like age and gender and interests. So you would have to use that drop down. The other thing that you can do is comparisons. So this used to be called segments, but for example, you might want to do country, and then you might want to segment by source or by device, and that will give you additional rows. Whereas the filter, when you're in the filter, it just limits what you see. Whereas segments, just a bit like we were doing just a minute ago, by having that secondary dimension, it's a similar thing. So segments and secondary dimensions are quite similar, but what you can do is you can have the data underneath. So going into library and customized reports then. So this is the library down bottom left. And as I build this, you can see that the business objectives relate to that section, life cycle relates to that section, search console relates to that section. And if I click the button here, which you can just about see over on the right, there's an arrow, then these other ones are further to the right. So this is another example. So we've got business objectives, we've got developer, we've got life cycle, and then these are the other ones which are further right. And what you'll find is if you go in here and say a life cycle isn't showing, then what it would be is it wouldn't have this published. And if you click on the little three dots, you can then publish it and display it, and then it will appear. But what you can do is you can edit each of these collections, and then that means that you can change the names of them and you can add reports in. And you just need to be aware again that there's two types of reports. There's the overview report, and then there's the detailed reports. And you've got all of these different reports underneath that have been created already. Or you can go to the, so let me just show you this one. So life cycle, user, business objectives. Can you see how it's not published? And then if you go in there, you can actually, you can click on it and you can actually publish it. I think my red is hiding the dots. If you then go down to this section, as I said, this is all the different reports that are available or somebody in your business has created for you. If you've got a brand new out of the box, there won't be as many. But if you've got a team like ours, we're creating them all the time. And you've got the ability to go and create a new report there. When you hit this, you've got a choice of two. You've got these overview reports and then the detail reports. And the way I'd remember it is the overview reports is like a dashboard, but the details reports has usually got the graph with the table underneath. And that's where you go and look at all the dimensions and all the metrics and really drill down into what's happening. And then the graph allows you to see that over a period of time. So when you go into building custom reports, I'm not going to go into the detail or create one today because there's not enough time. You can use all these different templates, or you can create a blank one. I definitely recommend that you start from something that you've already got. I also recommend that you copy existing stuff and edit it. That's the easiest way of doing it. But if you go to this one, this is Search Console. I go in, I can see the dimensions I've already got here. And in this case, I've got search query is my dimension. And then I've got these are my metrics. So the metrics are the columns. And then if I want to go and edit them, I can do it in here. I'm not planning to show you how to do the editing today. I just wanted to show you where to find it, and then you can go and play. There's some really good videos on this as well, so it's dead easy to find. If you then look what that looks like, so once it goes into the report, I've got two. I've got queries and I've got Google search. So this one is Google queries. So as I said, you've got your graph here, and I've got my in this case it's by search query, so I can see a little summary over here on the right, and then I've got the search query, and then I've got the data. And with Search Console data, you get clicks, impression, click-through rates, and average positions. That's all you've got. Whereas if this was acquisition, I would have the source, and then I can add whatever metrics I want. I could have things like pages, sessions, engaged sessions, bounce rate, duration, etc. So the Explore menu and explorations, which I mentioned earlier on, this is where you might find more sort of sophisticated looking reports. So you've got some examples here of the different ones that you can create. I think it's quite difficult to use. I find it not the easiest package to use. You can see that the team have created quite a lot. And I would personally, unless it was something that looked like this, I would always go and go into Looker Studio, which I'm going to show you shortly. But effectively, you can click on one of these and you can create a report. And you choose a template, and then you start to build your own report. But again, actually building reports is quite complex. You have to drag the data across first, and then you need to choose what you want to use. So again, I'm not going to have time to cover that today. This is an example of a report that's been created using the Explore features, which I think is the sort of path analysis that somebody was asking after earlier on. And you can do it two ways. You can start from the end point, or you can start from the starting point. This is finding out who ended up at the contact form and working backwards. But you can flick it around the other way as well. You've also got some lifetime reporting, which is only available in Explorer. So sometimes the reason that you might want to use Exploration or Explore Hub is because it's the only place the data's there. That also means that sometimes the data is not available in Looker Studio either. So you must be aware of that. And then these are the sorts of reports that that you can create, and you'll notice that the other one happens as well. So Search Console data isn't available in Explorations, but is available in Library, which I think is why. So when I first started learning reporting, I learned it in here and I found it really difficult. I think Library is much, much easier. And if you're familiar with Looker Studio, you'll find it easier as well. So just quickly going through advertising, I know I'm out of time. So advertising menu is to do with the ad platforms that you're using. And then admin menu, again, not going to go into too much detail. They have changed the layout. So the nice thing is that you can find it much easier. So that's the account session settings there. This lot is the property settings. And then you've got data collection, you've got data display, and then you've got some of the ones that I use all the time. So setup assistant, account access. We've also got data streams, and then events and conversions. So those are the bits that I definitely recommend you look at. And if you want to go audiences as well, if you're doing advertising. And if you are interested in learning how to set it up, you need to go to this webinar, which is a big marker webinar. So I don't know whether you can copy that into the chat, Gurpreet. With regard to Looker Studio, I'm just going to show you a couple of templates that we've built. You can see this also includes old GA3 data, which is going to go away pretty quickly. So you're going to have to get your GA3 data somewhere else in order to, so maybe into a spreadsheet or Google Drive or a database, so that you can create comparison reports. But I just wanted to show you what it looks like if you are trying to compare your GA3 data with your GA4 data. You can see that this is based on the month of May. This is the months going down here, and I got GA3 and GA4 data. And it is interesting because those metrics don't always match. So GA3 and GA4 data, you can see that sessions and users is usually quite different, whereas revenue is quite often very similar, and average value. Course, this is going to be different. That's going to be different, but revenue and transactions usually pretty close. Archiving your GA3 data, because you've only got a little while to do it. Basically, this is a slide that I was using for the last year to explain how the different sort of setups that you might have found if you started with your GA3 originally. And most of you will now be in the green zone where you've got a GA3 hanging around and you've already got your GA4 and you've manually configured and you've adjusted all your settings, which is what we talk about in Ed's webinar. But because GA3 is going to go, then you just need to be aware that we need to do something about archiving that data if you want to compare it. So there's various ways of exporting your data. You can use the standard reports and the custom reports within the interface. There's also, and then export it using those buttons that I showed you earlier on where you can export data. Make sure you export as many rows as possible. So if it's set at standard of 10, change it to 5,000 to export as much data as you can. There's also a plugin for Google Sheets. I would recommend you go over to Looker Studio, pull the data you want, and then you can archive it from there. There is also some connectors like Supermetrics, which can also bring in a lot more data as well. I did find a GA3 exporter tool, but the free version is rubbish. So unless you pay, you're not going to get what you need. And then for more technical users, you can use the API, but I think the main GA3 API is pretty much closed now. And if you were previously paying for the 360 user, the expensive premium version, then you can export directly into BigQuery. The good thing is a BigQuery, which is a database, is free if you use GA4. So at least with GA4, you can get data into BigQuery. I just wanted to finally mention Google Consent Mode. If you've not already done this, what we're talking about is these cookie management platforms like CookieBot. We did a whole presentation on this a couple of weeks ago. Ed did that. These extra points have been added in. This is Cookie Consent Mode 2. So if you don't have a cookie banner that looks something like this, you need to look into it. And if you are doing Google Ads without one of their approved cookie management platforms, then you could be in danger of your ads account being disapproved, particularly if you're advertising in Europe. I don't think they quite know what to do with the UK yet because we're not officially in Europe. But of course, we have signed up to GDPR and a lot of the other regulation that comes out on privacy. There is a webinar on cookie consent mode. That's nice and easy for you to scan, or you go to bit.ly. The Annika might be lowercase, actually, lowercase a hyphen consent 2. I'm not sure whether bit.lys are case sensitive, just to warn you. And then that's it. So apologies for overrunning. There was a lot to cover today. I'm sure there's absolutely tons and tons of questions. Gurpreet, what do I need to answer?
Quite a few questions popping up. Just cautious that we've got a workshop in a few minutes' time as well. So
you might need to go to the workshop, but if we can just quickly answer some of the questions, that would be amazing.
I'll fly through as many as I can. Let's see, to try and go to the start. How does a person know if they've got a spike or not?
Oh, you see it. As soon as you see a graph, you'll see something like what I showed you there. You've got those massive spikes. So that appeared about August. We didn't have it before. But I have seen quite a few other accounts and they've got it as well. If it's from a referral source, you can just filter it out. But the problem with ours is direct, so it's really difficult for us to filter it out. So we're looking into that at the moment.
Brilliant. Just going through quite a few questions. Is there a way to see acquisition paths for specific pages and screens?
Yeah, what you'd have to do is do the secondary dimension. So if you, there's two ways of doing it. You can just do a secondary dimension in combination with the landing page. But if you wanted to create one of those filters where you've got the flow, then you would have to just use a filter. So the filter would just select that one page. So that's how you would do it. But that's quite an advanced question, that one.
Brilliant. Does GA4 factor in external factors such as seasonality, or does the user have to manually do that?
Well, it's collecting data based on it's a historical record of the user's behavior. So therefore, if you looked at 12 months worth of data, you would see the seasonality. So I don't know whether that's necessarily answering the question, but that's definitely it reports seasonality. It doesn't take it into consideration.
Brilliant. If you sign up to GA4 as a new user and connect your website, does any historical data show up, or will it show up afterwards you've signed up?
No, it's from the date that you set it up. Yeah. If you set up an event or goal, we discussed conversion rather, for say a thank you page, the events will only start from the day that you set it up, but you could find that page and historically see what happened over a longer period of time.
Brill. Is there a way of tracking where the spikes have come from?
It's detective work. So I knew it was direct traffic and I also knew it was from Dublin. But I've tried things like host path and referral source, but because it's direct, I can't see that. But when I've spoken to other colleagues and they've got these spikes, they've been able to pin it down to, say, a specific IP address or a specific referral source. Now, IP addresses are anonymized now in GA4, so it's not very easy to filter out on that, whereas you probably could have done in GA3.
Brilliant. Is data based on cookies tracking? If so, does this change as cookies are updated?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things you need to do is extend the duration of your default. Default is 2 months and you want to extend it to 14. Hence, if people block cookies, the cookie data can be deleted or you wouldn't get their information. The reason why consent mode is really important is if somebody you've got 3 scenarios really. You've got 4. They accept all of your cookies, they modify and just accept some, they reject them, or they don't click on anything and carry on using your site. If they carry on using your site without rejecting it, then you don't get any data at all. But if they reject them, then the cookies, the Google can work out from the user an approximation of what they think would have happened. But the cookies don't actually fire until the cookies are accepted, which is why you need to get the cookie consent mode sorted.
Brilliant. Can you see what the user engaged with to analyse your website content performance?
Sorry, say that again.
Can you see what the user engaged with to analyse your website content performance?
Yeah, that's what the landing page and on screen reports does. And there's various different versions of that. So that will allow you to work out things like duration, scroll, how long they scroll. Did they scroll 75%? Did they scroll 50%? Did they watch a video? Those are all the sorts of events and metrics that you can use relating to specific landing pages. There was a question on data streams, which I need to answer. So data streams, you'd have a data stream for a specific website or an app. So you might have an account. If you've got 3 websites, you'd have a data stream for each of them. And each of them would have its own measurement ID, which is what you use when you actually set up the tracking. I'm just conscious that Gurpreet needs to run. Is there any other important questions?
There's quite a few. But for all the learners putting in these questions, save them for the workshop, and they'll definitely be answered then. Just going through quite a few still to get through.
There was one about paid social. So with paid social, what you would use is a UTM or URL tracking code in the actual URL. That is much more likely to get tracked because it will come through to a specific campaign, and it's more likely to be attributed to paid social. Is when you don't use any tracking URLs or you get a lot of traffic on mobile. That is often blocked, and so that it can't be tracked, and therefore it often gets dumped into direct, which is like the dumping ground of the stuff it doesn't know what it is.
Brill. It's quite an interesting one. Please, can you explain the best practice for seeing a journey report for email marketing campaigns?
Okay, well, a lot of the data is actually over in the email platform, which you'll learn about with Gurpreet's session if you've not already done it, if you're on the training, or if you've seen any of Gurpreet's webinars on email marketing. What we're really doing in analytics is what happens after they arrive on the site. So again, URL UTMs are really good because you can actually specify what specific campaign, what actual, what link it was on the page. So you might want to do some testing around that. And then you can then see by events what happens next. So the events and the conversion. So events really covers anything. So that could be a video download. It could be a micro conversion. But the conversions that you really want are the money makers. So that would be a form filled in, or an inquiry form, or a sale. So we tend to use events for everything. And then the conversions or the key events are the big ones, the really important ones. And those are also the ones that tend to get imported in. If you're doing things like Google Ads, you tend to focus on those big conversions. But yeah, you can go into an events report or engagement report or a traffic report and just filter down just on email and look at the individual campaigns. Anything else?
No, I think that's everything.
Excellent. Well, apologies for Helen says UTMs disappear as they navigate. Can we track the path? It does depend on how your website's been set up. You can retain that, but you would then look at user, because that's where they arrived, and what happened afterwards is sort of linked. So you might have to look at a user report rather than a session report. So if you want to find out what happens with emails and what happens next, use the user report. That might be worthwhile. Okay, guys, I think we better call it a day. I apologize for overrunning. I think it's because we had sort of 10 minutes of questions midway through. We probably need to not do that again. But thanks, everybody. And we'll send out the recording in a little while. Okay, bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.